Imagine this. You're at home on a Saturday afternoon, cleaning your suppressor at the kitchen table. Coffee's still warm, TV's on low in the background, nothing exciting. Then the doorbell rings. You look through the window and see a man in a windbreaker with a badge around his neck and a clipboard in his hand. He smiles, gives a little wave. When you open the door, he says, "Good afternoon, sir. I'm with ATF. We just have a few quick questions about your suppressor registration since the NFA tax changed. This will only take a minute." In that moment, whatever you say next can decide whether this is a mildly annoying conversation at your front door or the first chapter in a federal case file with your name on it. In this video, I'm going to give you one exact sentence, 11 words, that you can use if an ATF agent ever asks you about your suppressor. These 11 words are designed to protect your rights, keep you from accidentally confessing to a crime you didn't even know you were close to, and give your lawyer the chance to do their job before you say something that can't be unsaid. No politics, no drama, and I'm not telling you to fight with the government. I'm showing you how to stay legal and stay smart when the rules are complicated and the stakes are very real. And yes, I will tell you the exact 11 words clearly, multiple times, so they're burned into your brain by the end of this video. First, let's deal with the big headline that has a lot of gun owners confused and a lot of ATF agents busy. The NFA tax on suppressors is gone. The $200 tax stamp that everyone has complained about for decades has been eliminated for suppressors and some other NFA items. That part sounds like a win. No more $200 penalty just to make your rifle hearing safe. But here's the trap most people don't understand. The tax going away did not erase the rest of the law. The forms are still there. The background checks are still there. The registration requirements are still there. The penalties for messing it up are absolutely still there. 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine did not go anywhere. So what happens when the tax disappears? A lot more people rush to get suppressors. A lot more applications. A lot more chances for mistakes on forms. A lot more confusion from dealers and owners about what changed and what didn't. And anytime there is confusion, that is when friendly little knock and talk visits suddenly become very interesting for ATF. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine John, a regular gun owner, finally decides to get a suppressor because, hey, the tax is gone. It's cheaper now. Why not? The gun store is slammed. Paperwork is rushed. The clerk is training someone new, and one number on the form is written wrong. Or John moves and doesn't update an address. Or there's a glitch in the system and his approval isn't properly linked. A year later, there's a knock at his door. We're just checking some records regarding suppressors issued during the first few months after the tax change. Mind if we come in and look at your paperwork and the suppressor? It'll just take a second. Now here's the ugly truth. Most law-abiding people in that moment feel flattered, cooperative, and maybe a little nervous. And that combination is dangerous. They think, I have nothing to hide. I did everything right. If I don't cooperate, I'll look guilty. So they start talking. They invite the agents in. They answer questions they were never legally required to answer. And they don't realize until much later that those friendly questions were actually an investigation. So let me give you the big rule right up front. You are never required to help the government build a case against you. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to scream. You don't have to slam the door. But you do have the right to stay silent. And you do have the right to refuse consent to a search. And the worst position you can be in is half cooperative and half informed. That's how good people get hurt. Now let's bring this back to our title. ATF asks about your suppressor. Maybe they're at your door. Maybe they stop you as you're leaving the range. Maybe they call you on the phone and say, "We'd like to clear up some questions about your recent suppressor purchase." Different situations, same core question. What do you say? Here's what you don't do. You do not start explaining your life story. You do not start guessing about what might have happened with your paperwork. You do not start filling in blanks that they haven't even mentioned yet. And you absolutely do not consent to any search just because the agent sounds polite and says, this is just a formality. Instead, you use the same constitutional tools that protect drug suspects and murder suspects and gang members. Because those tools are not about whether you are a good person or a bad person. They're about power. The government has investigators, prosecutors, and prisons. All you have is your rights, and if you don't use them, they don't protect you. So what are the 11 words? I want you to hear them once, then we'll break them down, and then I'll give them to you again, slowly, so you can remember them. If an ATF agent is asking you questions about your suppressor, your paperwork, your guns, or anything related, the sentence you use is, I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now. That's 11 words. Let's count them. I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now. 11. Simple, clear, and powerful. Let's talk about why this specific sentence is so effective. It does two critical things at the same time. First, it clearly says you are not giving consent to any search. Not of your home, not of your safe, not of your vehicle, not of your person. If they have a warrant, they don't need your consent, and they will tell you that. But if they don't have a warrant, consent is their shortcut. Your yes is what turns a casual conversation into a lawful search. Second, that sentence clearly says you want your lawyer. Not that you might call one later. Not that you'll think about it. Not that you probably should talk to somebody. You are invoking your right to counsel right now. Once you clearly ask for a lawyer, they're supposed to stop questioning you. Will every agent perfectly follow that rule? No. But from that moment on, every question they ask you and every answer you give becomes easier to challenge later in court. So how does this sound in the real world? Let's go back to the door knock. You open the door. Agent smiles. Good afternoon, sir. I'm with ATF. We're reviewing some NFA records. We have a few questions about your suppressor. It'll just take a minute. A lot of people freeze there. They don't want to slam the door, they don't want to look rude, and they definitely don't want to look guilty. So here's a calm, respectful way to handle it. You keep the door mostly closed. You step outside if you want to, but you don't invite them in. And you say, calmly, "Officer, I respect what you're doing, but I'm not going to answer any questions or consent to any searches. I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now." Then you stop talking. You don't fill the silence. You don't explain that you pay your taxes, you love America, your grandfather fought in World War II. You don't make nervous small talk. You let that sentence stand. What might they say next? Maybe something like, "We're not here to arrest you. We just want to clear up a small paperwork issue." Or, "If you cooperate, this will be quick and you'll be on your way." That is the moment where decades of TV cop shows kick in and your brain says, "If I just cooperate, this will go away." But that's not how investigations actually work. If everything was perfectly fine, they could have mailed you a letter. They came to your door because they want information, and that information can absolutely be used against you later. So what do? You repeat the same line, calmly and respectfully. "I understand, but I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now." If they say, "Are you refusing to cooperate?" you say, "I'm choosing to exercise my rights. I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now." I want you to notice something. In that sentence, you are not lying. You are not admitting anything. You are not accusing them of anything. You are not escalating. You are simply putting a legal boundary in place. And if they ignore it, that's on them, not on you. Now let's switch the scenario. You're leaving the range. You've got a rifle case in the truck, suppressor stored properly, and you stop at a gas station. As you're pumping gas, an unmarked car pulls up, two guys step out, badges come out, and one of them says, "Hey, we're with ATF. Mind if we take a quick look at your suppressor and your paperwork? We had some questions pop up in the system." Most normal guys in that moment feel pressure from the social situation. You're in public, people are watching, you don't want to make a scene. So you feel pushed into saying, "Yes, sure, no problem." Here's how you handle it like an adult who understands his rights. You keep your hands visible. You stay calm. You say, "Officer, I'm not going to answer any questions or consent to any searches. I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now." If they say, "If you have nothing to hide, why not just let us look?" you do not take that bait. Guilt and innocence are not the issue. The issue is law and power. You repeat, "I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now." If they have probable cause and a valid legal basis, they will act on that regardless of how friendly you are. Your cooperation does not magically erase unlawful conduct, missing forms, or database errors. What it does do is make their job easier and make it much harder for your lawyer to protect you later. Now, I can hear the objection already. A lot of people watching this are thinking, won't that make me look guilty? Won't they think I'm hiding something if I ask for a lawyer? Let's deal with that head on. First, prosecutors and agents already assume that everyone they talk to might be hiding something. That's the nature of the job. Second, in court, the jury is not going to hear this guy asked for a lawyer and refused consent. What they're going to see, most of the time, is the evidence that was or was not legally obtained. Your job is not to manage the agent's feelings in the moment. Your job is to make sure your rights are intact if this ever ends up in front of a judge. And remember this, criminals use their rights aggressively. They say nothing. They ask for lawyers immediately. They never invite cops into their homes. Law-abiding people are the ones who feel guilty using rights they actually have. That's backwards. The Constitution was written for everyone, including the guy who just wanted to shoot a quieter rifle without paying $200 to the government. Another objection you might have is, what if I really did make a small mistake on my paperwork? Shouldn't I just explain and apologize? No, not without a lawyer. The difference between a small mistake and knowingly making a false statement on a federal form can be the difference between an annoying afternoon and a felony conviction. The only person who should be explaining anything on your behalf is your attorney, after they have seen all the documents and talked to you in private. So how do you prepare for this in real life? First, you memorize the 11 words. Say them out loud right now with me. I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now. Again, but slower. I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now. Second, you make sure you actually have a lawyer in mind before you ever need one. This video is not legal advice for your specific situation, and I'm not your attorney. Laws change, facts matter, and states differ. But you should have the number of a real firearms-savvy attorney saved in your phone, in your wallet, and maybe even by the fridge. When the pressure is on, you don't want to be Googling "gun lawyer near me" while ATF is standing on your porch. Third, you tighten up your own house. That means you keep your copies of your NFA approvals, even if the tax is gone. You keep copies in a safe place. You make sure your addresses are updated when you move. You don't rely on the gun store to do everything perfectly. You treat every NFA item like the serious legal responsibility it is. The more squared away you are on your end, the more confident you can be when you calmly say those 11 words. Let's do one more scenario, this time over the phone. You're at work and you get a call from a number you don't recognize. You answer, and the person says, "Hi, this is Special Agent so-and-so with ATF. We had some questions about your suppressor, and I just need to clear a few things up with you." The trap here is that a phone call feels less serious than a knock at the door. You're sitting at your desk, you're in a work mindset, you feel like you can just chat, and it's no big deal. But that phone call can be recorded, notes can be taken, and anything you say can be written up in a report later. So you apply the same rule. You say, "Officer, I'm not going to answer questions on the phone. I do not consent to any searches and want my lawyer now." Then you get off the phone. You call your lawyer. Let them handle it from there. By now, you've heard the 11 words multiple times. That repetition is not an accident. Under stress, your brain doesn't rise to the level of your intentions. It falls to the level of your training. For most gun owners, training has meant marksmanship and maybe a concealed carry course. Very few people have trained what to say when the government starts asking legal questions. This video is your mental training. You're wiring in one simple sentence that can buy you time, protect your rights, and keep your future out of a government file cabinet. So let's finish by locking it in. If ATF ever asks you about your suppressor at your door, at the range, on the phone, anywhere, your job is not to argue, not to explain, not to confess, not to brag about how careful you are. Your job is to be calm, respectful, and firm. You look them in the eye and you say, "I do not consent to searches and want my lawyer now." You let the silence sit. If they push, you repeat it. You don't turn it into a debate. You don't get emotional. You just exercise the rights that were written for moments exactly like this. If you found this helpful and you want more exact word-for-word scripts for traffic stops, police at your door, and self-defense calls to 911, watch the video I've linked next. It's the same idea. Clear, simple words that keep you safe, legal, and in control when everything around you is designed to make you panic.